What is going on, Summit Chaser? Sorry that I'm squinting. It's really, really bright here. We are in Las Vegas, but we're not here to talk about that. We are here to introduce you to another episode of the Summit Chasers podcast. Very excited for this guest today, Mr. Dan Sanchez, or as his friends like to call him. Not gonna lie, he told me that I could call him Dan Chez. Very, very smart individual. He's actually the one that introduced me to the concept of ultralearning. I've heard of it before, but I never really went in depth with it. I never really understood exactly what it was. But we talk about how to become a master at something in a very short period of time, how to create a strong brand, where you should start when you're trying to create a strong brand, especially if you're a business who's maybe a little bit further along and you feel it's too late to really focus on our brand. We break down how you can do that. But my favorite part of this is just his obsession with trying to learn, his obsession with trying to be better, his obsession with being a master at something. We talk a lot about AI and how you can become a master at AI and the steps that you should take in order to get the most out of AI and really what it's supposed to be used for. So sit back, get your notebooks out. For this one, since we're in Vegas, grab maybe a mojito, maybe a margarita pizza, and enjoy the show. Dan, thank you so much for being on, my friend. I've been looking forward to this one. We talked, like we were just saying, about a month ago. I'm a big fan of yours, a lot of your work, and then a fan of some of the things that you're a fan of as well that I hope that we get a chance to talk about.
Let's dive into it, man. I'm ready.
Beautiful. Well, before we get into the meat and potatoes, so to speak, fill everybody in, let everybody know a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do.
Oh, Dan Sanchez. My friends call me Dan Chez, and I'm a marketer. I've been a marketer, and I've been in love with this job. It's even my hobby. It's my passion. I read about it all the time, and lately, dang man, I've fallen head over heels in love with what AI can do in marketing. So I've been covering that extensively, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it in the show. But I'm also a podcaster, a children's book author. And of course, I'm talking about marketing and all those things. Even my children's books, it's like marketing for children or audience growth for children. So I produce a lot of content about marketing. I'm very active on LinkedIn and have a small audience of marketers, especially in the B2B space. And it tends to be what I do, what I talk shop about, and what I'm always even more curious about learning. Because if you can solve marketing, you can solve a lot of problems. Economic problems, policy problems. I even come from the nonprofit space, so like world change problems, it's a marketing problem often. So I'm so passionate about it because it's such an effective and never changing sphere in life that if you can learn how to leverage marketing well and learn how to use marketing well, you can accomplish a lot in life. You can accomplish a lot for a business, and it's also just highly employable and valuable as a skill set. So it's lucrative.
It's incredibly valuable.
How about that?
That's amazing. Well, so there's something you brought up. What's the difference between, I don't think a lot of people know this, that's why I'm asking, what's the difference between using it, marketing, like good marketing, utilizing marketing well, and not utilizing not well?
The difference between well and not well is the results that it achieves, right? That's pretty much it. Like, is it accomplishing what you meant for it to do? A lot of people do marketing and the biggest problem is they don't even know if it's working, right? So that would be a problem. But if you're doing good marketing, you know it's working because people are telling you about it as they're coming in and either paying you money, or if you're trying to raise awareness about a cause or something like that, they're telling you they found out about it through their marketing, then it's working.
So how would you measure that? Because some people, like with they're putting out ads, right? There's lots of metrics that they can use to gauge the success of that type of marketing. But if you want to get into specifically brand marketing, or you have a consulting business or whatever, and you want a YouTube channel, how do you do that right? Like, how do you start out right? Like, where do you even start, I guess is probably the question.
Man, this is a huge debate in the marketing world, and people argue about it all the time. I have my own philosophy on it, but usually you're doing a combination of all kinds of different marketing. It's not just one. You're not just posting to Facebook and calling it good. You usually got, your social media going on. You got an email list you're building. You're running paid media. Maybe you're building relationships with some influencers. Maybe your CEO is going out and talking and giving speeches at different conferences and stuff. So how do you measure the effects of all this stuff? There are, of course, 1,001 like tech vendors that will sell you some kind of what they call attribution models, where they can measure it and empirically prove that things work. But I find those to be somewhat limited. So as a marketer, what I try to do is I try to triangulate between like 3 different sources of truth. And then all of it is imperfect as far as measuring how well it's working. And all of it is just there to give you more data to work with to inform your gut choice. Because at the end of the day, a good marketer and a good entrepreneur even has to be able to discern how to move forward. And it's best if you use data in order to, I don't know, feed your gut so that you can actually discern correctly on where to go. Those 3 pieces, those 3 data points that I like to pull from are, one, sure, the tech software, HubSpot, Salesforce, wherever you have data, it's good to pull that and pull what you have. Unfortunately, like social media marketing, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, they're not going to tell you who's interacting with the content, not in a way that you can feed it back into your CRM and know who's actually buying stuff. It's a black veil of information. So you have to learn a little bit there. And therefore add in some more information. Like, honestly, the most fundamental place to learn if your marketing's working is actually just talking to your customers, especially new customers that have come in recently. How did you find out about us? What was life like when you found out about us? Asking them questions like that, and then be like, what was your first opinion when you first noticed us? Where did you notice us? What caused you to finally take a first step towards us? When you looked at us compared to everybody else you could have bought from, why did you choose us? Asking them these questions, then digging in, and then doing that not just with one person, but 3, 4, 10, 20 times, you'll start to see trends in their answers. Those trends are the most valuable assets marketers could ever get. It's way better than anything you get from tech companies. And then you can take what's called qualitative information and map it out to turn it into quantitative information. Because again, you can take all their answers and start putting in an Excel sheet, start organizing the information, then use that to build surveys to then send to more people to get more even quantitative information, validating empirically that it's true, that this is why people choose you. This is where they find out about you. This is how your brand is building affinity with them, so they have an irrational bias to go with you rather than your competitor. So those 3 pieces of information, it's like quantitative from like things like surveys, and there's other ways to do it too, like A/B split testing landing pages and all that kind of stuff. There is just talking to your customers, again, the best place. If I only had one of the 3, that's it. And then thirdly, the tech companies, and like, of course, there's all kinds of little other measurements too. Like if you're optimizing a Google AdWords campaign, you're going to want to be in the Google Ads tool, looking at all the little metrics they give you. And there's thousands of them in there. It's like of impressions to clicks and click through rate to ad impression share of everybody else's ads and all that kind of stuff that you're evaluating to improve just that one little area of your marketing. But then you have to look at it holistically with everything else, with the 3 other places I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great advice.
So long answer.
No, that's great advice, because I think I know that for a fact. I've been there before. We're scared to ask for feedback, because what if we don't like the feedback we're getting? What if it's negative? But then B, what if it's feedback that maybe it's like, we need to do this, we need to make this change, and we're just not ready to make that change, or we don't want to make that change, right? So it's sometimes it's scary to get that feedback. But if let's say you're a 10 to $50 million company, and you haven't focused on, like, maybe you've focused too much on aggregators, like you're just buying leads. You haven't necessarily been building your own marketing, your own brand. You have the funnel that you use is very limited. Where would you start if you're just trying to get into, okay, we have this business, we've been doing pretty good, now we need to kind of take control of our own destiny? Where do I start?
For a $10 to $50 million company, it's a huge range.
There's a few of them out there. But
I've heard about massive companies. I heard like a few years ago, I found out my buddy was starting a job working for this $34 million roofing company. It's like a regional roofing company. I'm like, $34 million and they don't do any marketing? He's like, yep, dude. They just, I don't know what they're doing, but whatever they're doing, they got one thing that's working for them, and the $34 million company. I'm like, geez. Where do you start? Honestly, you try to figure out, like, with every single company, you have to try to figure out like where can I find the attention of the audience. With a roofing company, it's probably going to be like Google ads and SEO because people are searching roofing, like they need it now, like something just happened and now they need a roofing company, right? So those types of businesses tend to be very search oriented. But different companies are different. Like real estate agents, like they have to go hunt in a different place because they need to build affinity before they start searching, because all real estate agents like kind of do the same thing, you know? And how do you prove you're a better real estate agent than the other? It's kind of hard. So like if I were a real estate agent, I'd be trying to build affinity on YouTube right now. Very few do this, but the ones that are doing it are freaking crushing it. Like becoming the what they call digital mayor of like your town, but on YouTube. So you're going to all the places, you're making content about all the things, all the neighborhoods in a city. Like I just recently, we were just talking about, like you used to live in Las Vegas, right? Before we pushed record here. I have a friend who's a real estate agent, a big real estate agent for Las Vegas. And I was just pitching him. I'm like, dude, you need to start making content about all the best neighborhoods in Las Vegas, all the things to do once you move here, things to consider if you're moving here from out of state, right? Or out of Las Vegas. There's a lot of things that are special about Las Vegas that you probably should be aware of. You know, like what are all the questions people ask when they're starting to think about moving to Las Vegas? Make videos about all of that stuff, right? So you can get them before they're actually like even making commitments on houses, because you're going to be the one educating them and helping them figure it out. Not all the tourist stuff, but for the people that are considering living there, all that stuff. Things to go, places, schools for your kids. Make videos about all that stuff.
Well, and to answer kind of your question, like that's a big range, and like how do they get that big? Like I'm asked that, I made that range because there's companies that I've worked with, and one of them I think is just a little over 10 million now, and one just hit 50 million this year. They have done none of their own marketing, none, like other than buying leads from aggregators, right? Supplied, they're non-branded leads, right? There's just they buy the lead. There's 5 other companies calling that person as well, right? And they got there, and then they kind of see, you know, whether a new policy comes out, all of a sudden again they realize that we don't have control of our own destiny. One policy can drastically decrease our lead count. Now I have to play catch up. So you're saying start with where the customer's at, so SEO, right? Ads, Facebook ads, whatever it is, because it's very search. It's almost a commodity. Like, hey, my window broke. How do I find where's the nearest window manufacturing, window installation? How do you when do you start to prioritize building your brand? Like obviously it's right away, but let's say you're a little bit further down the road and you've been relying on aggregators. When do you start prioritizing like building that brand? Because obviously you have like the need to have, which is leads coming in. When do you start building the brand?
There's generally 3 seasons that you go through with marketing. One is I'm just starting out and I need money now, so I'm going to go after friends and family. Literally people that you have contact information to and that you've probably sent a text message to sometime within the last year. Those are the first people that are always your first sales. Generally, unless you're like starting some highly specialized B2B software thing and now you have to go somewhere else, right? But generally you're going to start with friends and family, and that's your first marketing list of being like, hey, I'm doing this thing, would love to help, I'm going to give discount, like can we give a shot? And then those are your first couple of clients. I know even starting for myself, I'm doing like podcasting services for some friends companies right now, but I got in doing it because one of my best friends works there and he trusts me, you know. It's all a trust game at the very beginning. Now, when you start to scale, you start to get into a type of marketing called direct response, where your marketing is less brandy and more of like a little salesman in print, or digital print, right?
Great.
And a little ad. You're trying to essentially scale the same value proposition, the reason why somebody should work with you, but you're putting it into a Facebook ad or a Google ad or maybe a YouTube ad or something where you're paying for it or posting about it every once in a while to something like LinkedIn. Like, hey, I just did some fantastic work for so-and-so. This is what I have some space opening up. This is what it would look like to work with me. Let me know if you're interested, or drop a comment if you're interested in what a free consultation would look like, right? So you're starting to go more direct response. Now, eventually you start to grow as a business where you have enough clients coming in and you'll plateau. And that's where you're going to start wanting to actually build a brand. You could be building a brand from the beginning, but branding eventually becomes the thing that grows you from, I don't know, like $1 million or $2 million in revenue to being able to grow even farther. And brand building is hard because it's not as, it's harder to attribute it. It's hard, like we were talking about in the very beginning, it's harder to know how it's working or why it's working, but we all know that it works because we all have irrational biases for specific brands in our lives. Why is that? The best book I've ever read on branding was this book called, oh gosh, it's like the best book I've read, called Primal Branding. By Patrick Hanlon. And the reason why it's the best book on branding, because he goes into actually what is like beyond the logo. Like throw the logo out the window. That's not a brand. You can change a logo, but the brand can stay the same. Coca-Cola could literally go with a whole new logo and probably have a very similar brand. Because it's not about the logo. The logo is just the visual expression of what's underneath. So what's underneath a brand that makes a brand good? It's beliefs. It's beliefs. What are the things that the company believes as a whole that makes them weird? And if they only have generic beliefs, then it's going to be a generic brand, right? Marriott, nice brand. Hilton. There's some differences in what those two companies believe. I'm trying to think of like Hyatt hotels. You're like, they're not a lot of differences between them, enough that there's definitely a little bit of a brand there. But then you go Nike. You're like, oh, very different. If Nike made a hotel, you know what that would look like. But if Hyatt made a hotel, what is that? Or if Hyatt made a shoe, what does that look like? I don't know. Some brands have stronger beliefs. And the stronger and the weirder your beliefs are, the stronger the brand's going to be. Those beliefs then inform the language, the words that you use. The language and the beliefs then inform the visuals. The visuals just become shortcuts for the beliefs. Right? That's why you can have Nike little swoosh. And what does that mean? Just do it. What does just do it mean? Oh, there's a whole lot of emotion and brand because they've been investing in what that means emotionally for decades now. You know? And then after that, you can invest in rituals. Like what are things that everybody who's into this brand does? Every time this happens, they do X, right? Who are the villains of the brand? Who are we against? Coca-Cola has Pepsi. Who's the villain? Who do you stand against? And then who's the leader of the brand? That's what Patrick Hanlon outlines in Primal Branding. It's the best book I've ever read on branding. It's not the most well-written book I've ever read, but if you can get through it, it's full of gold. It's just you'll find it. If you read it, you'll understand what I'm saying. But like what's in there is so good that I recommend it. Anybody who wants to go into branding has to read this book. Because all the other books are, at least most other branding books, are just garbage.
Yeah, well, that's such good advice on branding. Like, and I love even the name of that was tribal branding. Like we forget
Primal branding.
Primal branding. Sorry, primal branding, because we were primal. Like we were monkeys not that in the grand scheme of things. We were monkeys not that long ago. Like we're very primal tribal beings still. So we like to feel like we're a part of something. We're a part of a group. And then if you can, like you said, if you can add an enemy to that, then it's like us versus them. And now it even enforces it even more. Like I'm on Team Coke, which I mean, I personally don't care, but like there's some people who like, is Pepsi okay? They're like, absolutely not. Cancel my order. Like we're going somewhere else. Like, and that's what it creates. Like a great branding creates that. And that's amazing advice. And that was very well said, Dan Sanchez. Sorry. Yeah. So the other thing that you're an expert in, whether you're self-appointed or not, I think you are based on everything I've seen from you, is the emergence of AI in marketing. But like you said, I would go on YouTube and I would search how to use AI to improve my marketing. And it's just like, there's so much information out there. So if you're somebody who wants to, whether you're on your own, you're a solopreneur, you're a small business, whatever it is, and you want to, okay, I need to start utilizing this because I need to be able to keep up. Where do you start using AI for your marketing? Like how do you find out what works best for you?
I just asked that question in December, and I wouldn't call myself an expert. I'm definitely a student. I'm a marketer trying to master AI in 2024. This is my goal for the year. Like figure this out, get on top of it, master everything there is to or at least most of what there is to master in this year, and then just stay on top of it because I'm convinced that like marketing will forever change because of AI. AI is going to dominate every part of marketing, from brand building to social media to direct response to how you use your CRM. It's going to hit everything, and it's going to change everything. Kind of like digital has changed everything for marketing. And that's when I started my career on the back of digital marketing. And I like all the old print, the marketers who just leveraged like print media and direct mail, like got left in the dust of people who adopted digital, right? It's going to be the same thing with AI, which is why I'm like, okay, time to invest. So I'm just documenting the journey. It's why I have my own podcast on it, AI Micro Skills, where I'm trying to like just document what I'm learning and trying to find out what's practical now. Because I found in December, I'm like, I asked a simple question. I'm like, how do you know you're actually growing? How do you know you're progressing in your AI knowledge? I couldn't find a good answer. I'm like, how do I know I've learned enough or am up to date? Don't know. Had no roadmap to know what was good or not good in marketing. I'd had those roadmaps and lots of other categories of marketing, but not AI. So I started to seek to like put that together for myself. And I have kind of like a rough roadmap of what I'm trying to accomplish and learn this year. Some of it actually is what I'd like to accomplish, just isn't even possible with AI right now, but I'm trying to figure out what's possible now. I've spent a lot of time, and now like everyone's heard of prompt engineering. So that's people are pretty familiar with that. If you've gotten to AI, you try to learn it, you understand prompting and the importance of that. The next level from there that I found recently is building custom GPTs. So if you're trying to learn AI, trying to make the most of what's called a custom GPT is the thing that you need to be figuring out right now. Probably for the next 6 months, this is the skill to build, is doing this, because it becomes a meta skill for bigger things that are going to be coming later on, but the tech just isn't ready yet. Custom GPTs is the next level up from prompt engineering. If you know how to write good prompts and you've gotten better at getting what you want out of something like ChatGPT because you've practiced, you've read a few tutorials, you've watched some YouTube videos about how to write good prompts, and you've done that, now you're using it fairly regularly, your next level up from there is custom GPTs. Are you familiar with the term?
No, I'm not. Prompts. I'm just getting the prompts thing down, but
Yeah. So you're at level 1 of prompts, and generally at level 1, you're essentially using ChatGPT and other tools like it, like an assistant. You give it single tasks, and then you hand them off, and then it comes back to you with information to complete single tasks. It maybe rewrites something for you, or turns a transcript into some show notes for your podcast, or it does single things, and it does it well. Custom GPTs is taking that, but doing more complex projects, maybe multi-step projects for you. It's a feature baked into the paid version of ChatGPT right now, and it's fantastic. Essentially, you can create your own little GPT app without having to write any code. And again, you have to pay for access to this, and I think it costs $20 a month for ChatGPT Plus. Well worth it, especially once you start making these things, because you can use them to outsource different parts of your job. There's things that used to take me an hour or two that now take me just a few minutes, because I created instructions for ChatGPT to just run. Like every time I open up this custom version of ChatGPT and say, do this, it just starts executing bam, 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 multiple things down the list. Let me tell you a few that I've made that have been helpful to me, because now I don't have to do them anymore. I just, instead of taking the 2 to 3 hours to run this play, AI just does the whole thing. One is I called Nameframe. It's a custom GPT I created that comes up with creative names. Now you can just ask a normal GPT to come up with names, and it does a decent job, but this is using a specific method that I learned from a book by Alexandra Watkins called Hello, My Name is Awesome. She has a lot of good naming formulas in that book. This one was the most easy to follow one that was easy to break down. And also I found created really good names, like out of the box names that you're like, ooh, that hits different. Like ChatGPT wasn't going to come up with that name by itself. It essentially takes rhymes and idioms and then finds a bunch of different creative combos. I won't walk through the whole process, but I essentially say go, and it just runs through the whole process, and you just watch it like do all the work, which used to, again, take me 2 to 3 hours to do, and now it does it in 5 minutes. So that's one. I have a a GPT called My Showrunner that does all my pre-production for my podcast now. So instead of me having to do research on each guest, I just let my AI producer called My Showrunner do it for me. I just copy in their LinkedIn profile, paste it in, and it does research on the guest, research on the company they currently work for, and then taking my show premise, what's unique about my show, it thinks about what they're good at talking about and what I'm covering on the show, and comes up with unique angles to cover for that episode. And then it says, hey, which angle would you like to go with? Based on your show premise, based on this person's expertise, this is what you should look at. I'm like, great. Angle 3 looks good. And then bam, it's like, cool. Here's 10 potential titles for that episode. And it's trained because I give it I uploaded a swipe file of good podcast titles to train it. So it goes and references the swipe file, and then it comes up with 10 based on the swipe file. So they're good titles. So then I'm like, ooh, okay, let's go with that one. Title 3. They're like, cool. Now, based on this title and based on this angle and based on the guest's expertise, I'm going to go ahead and craft the questions that are going to drive this interview. And so it also creates the questions, you approve the questions, and then it actually outlines the whole show. It writes the intro. It comes with the questions, it writes the outro, and then it crafts an email that I can send to the guest with the questions, and the email's crafted in a specific way. It does all that work, and that's only the pre-production. I now have it doing a lot of the post-production work too. It's just, and it takes me maybe 5 to 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes to walk it through all these steps. It's about a 5-minute process. But like, how long does it usually take you if you're walking through all those processes? I don't know, an hour and a half to like really go through and like write out all the questions, find the angle, and do all that stuff. So now I'm saving myself time. The more important part, like, it's cool. Like, oh, Dan, you've built some cool GPTs. That's not the most important part. The important part is for you to think through, like, what are you doing in your job right now that you could be outsourcing to these custom GPTs? Because the skill set of thinking through how to break down a project into step-by-step directions and then handing it over to ChatGPT to execute for you, that's the skill set that you need to be building. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, because if you're a knowledge worker, you have these things in your work that you're doing all the time that you need to learn how to hand over to AI, because if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it, and they're going to automate your whole job. And you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI. That's what's going to happen. So I'm trying to figure out how to get ahead of that.
No, that's a fair point. So where to start, to summarize, would be not to go out and do a bunch of research on what AI can do. Find out what you need AI to do for you first. So identify what can you outsource, and then that's much more pointed research now. And then you can learn how to create these custom GPTs, or if you're at my level, get really good at the prompts first and then custom GPT from there.
And there's so many AI tools out there. Forget all of them. They're almost all of them are useless anyway. They're literally like little fringe cases of an AI that aren't useful. There's a lot of hype around them. Just use ChatGPT. It's the tried and true tool. Get the plus version. It has this thing called custom GPTs, and it limits you and what you can do with it, because ChatGPT, it can do a lot, but it can only do so many things. You can feed it images, and it can give out images. You can feed it text, and it can take in text. It can also do Bing searches, very helpful. And it can do analysis. It can think and give you things. So because it has some limitations on it, it's actually a great place for people to learn how to really leverage it, because it can do a lot, but there's a place for you to actually make things and then save your results from them.
Man, there's just so much. This is great advice to like first narrow down what you need, what you can outsource, what you should be outsourcing. But then from there, like, there's still so much to learn, and like with the world moving so fast, and like you said, like, you're trying to get ahead of that, where not necessarily you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you're going to be replaced by somebody who knows how to utilize AI. Because again, it's a tool. It's like if you're a construction worker and all you know how to use is a hammer, you're probably going to get replaced by somebody who knows how to also use a saw, who also knows how to use a nail gun, and also knows how to use a tractor, right, to drive. So, and there's one concept, or it's not really a concept, it's a strategy that I noticed that you're a big fan of. And after we talked initially about a month ago, I kind of looked into it a little bit, and I'm a big fan of it too. And it's Ultralearning. This is probably a tool for a lot of people should be using in order to stay ahead of these things. Like, okay, I need to improve my skills, or I need to generate or create new skills in order to either move up in my job, build my business, or I don't get replaced by something, right? So what initially made you look into Ultralearning to begin with?
I was kind of doing it before I even discovered the term Ultralearning, and then I'd heard of other people doing stuff like it, and like I think it kind of started with like Tim Ferriss. Like if you know Tim Ferriss, 4 Hour Work Week, 4 Hour Body, 4 Hour Chef, all those books. Like he's really like the original like ultra learner. But like other people have done it throughout history, so it's like he's not the only one. But learning how to do complex things in extremely short time frames. That's ultra learning. And there's a lot of people who do it, and you'd be surprised that a big part of ultra learning is literally just believing that it's possible. And now that I've read enough books, and of course Tim Ferriss is a huge human guinea pig for stuff like that, like once you know what's possible, then you start just looking for it all over the place. And then I refuse to like take a long time to learn anything or become an expert or a master of anything. Since like I'm trying to master AI in 2024, but look at me, I'm already like talking about it with some authority because I've learned so much in the last 30 days about AI that most like I already have a number of people like messaging me on LinkedIn every day now, like, hey dude, teach me about AI. Hey dude, teach me about AI. I'm like, okay, I guess I've learned enough that people are asking me for help, even though I've just been posting, hey, I'm a student figuring it out. Hey, I'm a student figuring it out. It just happens. But I also just have a mentality that you can learn a lot more faster. So how do you learn things fast? How do you learn things fast? There's a book on ultra learning where he has some crazy projects and things that he's done, but I've done some things as well. Like I earned my undergrad in marketing in 8 months, and then I earned my MBA in 6 months. And then I refused to like learn anything in like 30 days is like, I'll take a 30-day sprint at learning anything. There's some things that are probably too hard for me to learn. Like I try to learn the physics of acoustics. That one became too much because physics is hard. If you don't have a background in like the hard sciences already and like the mathematics required for it, you're like, like that one's, it's hard to throw yourself into like really complex topics like physics. But like most topics you can become like really, really good at within a short amount of time. AI is one I'm doing that with right now, but I've done it with multiple subtopics within marketing over the last couple of years. Like account-based marketing. That's a big topic in B2B marketing specifically. And I didn't know a lot about it when I got into B2B marketing. So I decided to take a 30-day like ultra learning run at it. And I read every book on the topic, which was about, I want to say 9 to 10 books. Wasn't many published on that topic at that time. And then I recorded 30 podcast interviews about it. And then I wrote articles about it. And then I posted to LinkedIn about it like every day. So in the midst of like consuming all the information, talking to all the experts, all the best people on it, and interviewing them on the podcast, and then like really wrestling with how to do it and build it, I started building it for the company I was working at, and building my first campaigns to start trying the things they said and start to get feedback for myself. I started becoming really good at ABM really quickly. I mean, but I was like all in obsessed with it for 30 days. And I learned a lot about ABM. Now there's still like a lot more I could have learned after the 30 days, and I did because I kept experimenting with it later on. But I think people put a lot of parameters around how much they can learn realistically. And I think that's the first thing you have to overcome with ultra learning, is learning how to say like, hey, like maybe I could be like could I be asking the question, like, what does it look like to be world class in a very short amount of time? One of my favorite case studies on this comes from the book Ultralearning. Like go find that book, but it's another guy who's like trying to learn stuff ridiculously fast, but he takes a friend and uses his principles on Ultralearning with him. He's like, hey, you want to study public speaking. You're a musician, but you don't have a lot of like similar meta skills other than maybe like being out in front of people. You don't normally speak in front of people though. What would it take for you to like win championships in public speaking? And within 30 days, I think he like placed third in a Toastmasters national championship for Ultralearning. I'm like, dang, world class, 30 days. I think it was something short like that, like something stupid short. Somebody who didn't have any training in public speaking went to being placing third in the National Toastmasters Championship. It's thinking of that kind of stuff and then being like, okay, what would it take to actually do that? It's not as hard as you would think. I mean, it's intensely hard, but it doesn't take as long as you think. And I think that's the thing that's fun, is you can accomplish way more in a short amount of time if you just put your mind to it and like grind at it for really hard for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I will say there's a downside to being addicted to Ultralearning, like I am, in that there's a lot that rewards you for being consistent in small ways over a long period of time, like social media growth, for example. That's not an ultra game. It pays just to be more consistent over time. I found I've tried the ultra. I've tried to sprint at. There's some things that you can't just sprint at. You have to do it over time. But you try.
Yeah. Well, you can learn how to do it. You can take, like, if that's, first of all, identify what is the thing of most importance that would get me the best results on my time investment at that point. And yeah, you have to do the things over time to reap the rewards, but you can mitigate the amount of time it takes to learn it, and therefore limiting the amount of time it takes that you're screwing up and failing. So if you learned it in a short period of time, over a year, let's say you learn you learn social media, how to be successful in social media in a month. You want to get better in a year, you have a goal in a year. Now you have 11 months of having a much more pointed, successful strategy, as opposed to, okay, I'm just going to slow roll and learn for 6 months. And now I only have 6 months of pointed, much more, a better strategy and how to get to my goal. So I think, and that's a great point, but just being very, but I like the question. That's what I wanted to talk about, was the question is not ask the question, okay, I want to learn acoustics, right? You initially didn't ask the question, is that possible? You asked the question, what would it take in order to be a master, in order to learn it enough in 30 days? So it's not, is that possible? It's, okay, what would it take to do that?
So you're asking me what it would take? Like, what are the steps I take to learning something in a short amount of time?
So when you decide, like, okay, I'm going to be an ultra learner here, how do you decide what to focus? Because it's intense. Like, for my research on it, like, you got to be very focused on that thing. So how do you decide this 30 days, I'm focusing on this?
Yep. So the 80-20 principle becomes becomes the principle to define ultra learning, because 20% of the inputs will always control 80% of the outputs. And that's true across almost everything. It's nuts because you can, like, I don't know, I wanted to learn Excel really well, but I found that like 20% of Excel gives you 80% of the things you would ever want and ever need out of Excel, right? But if you take a college class, what do they freaking do? They will take you through 100% of it. 100% of it, and usually not stacking the most important things up front. They're all mixed in there. It's the wrong way to learn. If you want results and you want it fast, you have to define, like, okay, like so I guess you start at the very beginning, like, what do I want to accomplish? The clearer you can get on the goal of what you actually want and stripping away all the other crap that doesn't matter, then that makes a very clear target. The next step is to strip away everything that doesn't matter on your way to get there. That's the 80-20 principle at work. What's the 20% that's the most important to getting the 80%? Sometimes just talking to the people who have been there and are masters at it already, they can tell you. And if they can't tell you, then they're not good enough yet. Go find someone who knows. There are people that'll be like, oh, dude, you just got to learn everything. Like, dude, go find a better teacher. Like, move away from that person and go find someone who knows, because there's always an 80-20 with every single subject. And then you just attack that 20%, that most important part. You try to figure out, like, can I sequence that? Is there a way to, like, learn it? And do I need to learn it in order, or do I just go after the thing that's most interesting, right? It becomes also like, how do you hack your own motivation to get progress faster? So you try to sequence it so you can go all in on learning just the most important things as fast as possible. And also trying to make it so you can get quick wins and feel like you're progressing, because it's all a motivational hack too, right? How do I put in so much effort so fast that I can see progress fast? That way I can actually make progress fast and continue going. And that becomes the few key pieces of ultra learning: setting a very clear target, cutting away 80% of what doesn't matter to focus on the 20% that's going to give you the most bang for your buck, for time spent. And then for me, when it comes to learning new subjects, especially like within marketing or something, like I took a run at a topic in marketing called thought leadership. Sometimes doing the things, there's a few unconventional things that I found work really, really well. One is buying every book on a topic. If it's not like a skill like soccer or something, if it's I don't know what to call it, like an academic subject,
like an intellectual
subject. Yeah. It's so funny how much easier it is than you would think to read like every single book on a niche topic. Like usually if it's niche, then there's probably only 10 to 20, maybe max 30 books on that topic anyway. And then reading every single book ever published on a topic just isn't that hard, because after you read the first 3 or 4, everything else is just repeat material. So you skim that because you've already read it. Now you're just reading it from another author's perspective who had to cover the same contextual information. So you just skim it, and then every new book you add to the list is like, it becomes less and less a percent of new material, and you skim more and more of it. So reading 15 books probably feels more like reading 6, because they're all on the exact same topic. Now, if there were 15 books on widely different, then you'd have to read all of them, but they're not. They're all on the exact same niche thing. So the new information goes down dramatically for every new book that you add to it, which means you can cover the whole gamut of published knowledge on a specific subject and start with a really good base of information. Now you know what is known for the most part. And this becomes what I call, this is my own hack at Ultralearning. Everything else I've talked about has been published by people like Tim Ferriss and the guy who wrote the book Ultralearning. But my own hack to Ultralearning is what I call the 30-30-30 plan. Read 30 books on the topic, right? Or however many books there are on the topic. Like when I did account-based marketing, there was like, I don't know, like there was around 10 books. There might have been a little bit more, a little bit less. I read all the books, and then I went and scheduled 30 podcast interviews. So 30 books, 30 interviews with the people who are experts on that topic. After you read the books, go schedule 30 interviews and talk to them about what you're learning. Ask them questions, because then you'll get all the stuff that wasn't published in the books or stuff they're on recently, or you can ask them more nuanced things. And now you're learning Socratically. Before you were inputting it all on your bread, now you're having conversations with it, wrestling with it, with the people who know freaking best. You also build relationships with them so they can connect you with all the other stuff might be going on in that industry. And then you got to create content about it. And I used to say write 30 blog posts about it. This can be pretty tough, but generally every topic has a certain amount of questions people are searching for it. So if you understand SEO, you want to write blog posts that rank for those keywords that people are searching about it, because they're the most frequently asked questions on the topic. And if you can teach them about those frequently asked questions, you've essentially mastered the basics. So by going through the 30-30 plan, read all the books, 30 conversations with all the experts, and then write 30 articles about it, you will have essentially not fully mastered, because always there's trial and experience of actually doing the thing. But as far as to what you can do through just reading, talking, and writing, you'll have covered so much ground in a very short amount of time. And you could do this in 90 days. You could take a whole year to do it. I'll have done this with AI probably by April, this 30-30-30 plan, except with the books. There are no books on this, so it's all conversations. But it's an easy way to master a topic. And I'm surprised more people don't do it, especially if you're you're a professional email marketer and you haven't even read 5 books on the topic of email marketing, let alone all of them.
No, that's amazing advice. And I like the concept, because it forces you, you can't just read one book and then pretend to be a master on it. Like you said, you could read, if you read 30 or 15 or whatever it is, the first 3, you might get some different information, but then it starts to be, then you hear it from different angles. And sometimes I could hear the same, it's like reading data. I could be looking at the data, then somebody next to me could be looking at the same data, and we'd get the different outcome. We would read it differently. We would see it a little bit differently. But if you do that, you get the different outlooks, and then you're talking to individuals who are either going through it now, and you get more tangible. You can get case studies from them. You get more tangible. This is actually that was theory. This is actually how it went. This is actually how the conversation went. And then if you have to start to teach it, you have to put it in your own words. And then you also have to communicate it so other people understand it. Now, that's like true understanding. And I love that concept, because that's when I was doing jujitsu, I would get to a point where I was okay at it, but then I got way better at it when I had to start teaching people, like the beginners. So when I had to teach, I had to think of it from a different angle. I had to think of it in my own way, and then I had to think of it not just in my own way, but in a way that would be the outcome. So I had to communicate to somebody else. I had to speak to them in their language, and I had to speak to it so that they understood it. So now I'm trying to speak. I'm trying to regurgitate the information to 30 different people, 30 different ways. So I have to understand it in 30 different angles.
Yeah.
So that's like a mic drop moment, I think, for you, Dan. Sorry, go ahead.
If you like this topic and you like jiu-jitsu, you should check out a book called The Art of Learning. Another book I have over here. Oh, come on. What color is it? I keep my books color coded because I always forget where they are.
Yeah, I don't do that.
There it is. Trust me, you're one of those guys that would like this book. This is from Josh Waitskin. He was. You ever heard of the book called "Searching for Bobby Fischer"? It's about a boy who's a chess prodigy. That's this guy. Mm. Like he was a chess prodigy. Yeah, he grew up and he wrote a book. This is it, The Art of Learning, and he got into he went from being a chess prodigy to getting into Tai Chi, and then after this book, this is after he wrote this book, he got into jiu-jitsu. But the whole book's about learning and the process of learning, and like he has some really crazy stuff in here. But if you're into learning and you're into like martial arts specifically, I'm like, you'll like that book.
The local Amazon drivers are going to be busy after this conversation, Dan. Like, I have a list, and I'm sure a lot of people listening have a list too of all the books that they need to listen to. But man, you're one of those people, and this is like an odd compliment that I give a lot of people, but I'm glad you exist, because like you're so intelligent, you speak so eloquently, and you do it without almost meaning to, but you're very inspirational to listen to and talk to. Because immediately, like, I want to go out and I want to try a lot of the things that you said to do, especially with this whole custom GPT thing, identifying how I'm learning, and it's not just with branding and that kind of stuff as well, but understanding how to learn and seeing somebody like you kind of do it yourself, and the commitment that you have to it it's inspiring. And again, I think what's so inspiring about it is you do it without trying to be inspirational. I think you just do it because you love it. And I might be speaking for you, but
man, it's pumping me up, man. Thanks for saying that.
No, I mean, it's just the truth.
I just like learning and sharing, so I'm glad it comes across that way on the mic.
No, 100%, absolutely. And people listening to that, again, I think they'll be pumped up listening to you. The 30-30-30 rule, I think that's great. But a lot of people, they have, again, identify what you're most passionate about, what you're able to put the time into in order to learn, and then what will give you the biggest return on that time investment and money investment, because 30 books isn't cheap, right? But identify that first, and then go out and commit to it. But Dan, I ask everybody this question at the end of our podcast. But for you, Dan Sanchez, for you, what is the next summit that you're chasing?
I mean, I'm chasing this AI summit. I'm trying to master this thing in 2024. I have broken down AI into 5 major steps to learn. One is learning how to use it as an assistant, then learning how to automate it, which is I'm just barely breaking into now. Learning how to use AI as a coach, to get it to ask me questions back. This is where the technology still struggles to be proactive in prompting you with questions. I'm still trying to figure out how to get it to do that. And then using it to better forecast the future. Again, technology issues, but some companies that I'm interviewing and then working with are trying to figure this out too. So that's a big advantage of AI. And then my last frontier of AI that I want to figure out is how to use AI to create original value, to where you're not using AI to create serve one of the other purposes I just mentioned, but it creates value in and of itself. One idea I've had for this, and this would be like a whole company to start, but it's finding something like this where AI is creating original value that then you could charge money for. Is like, I've written 2 children's books, one on like how to be a marketer or become a marketer when you grow up, and how to grow an audience. 2 children's books. I have kids. I'm trying to teach them how to become marketers, because I think marketing is awesome. Wouldn't it be cooler is if I had an AI program I could go to and I just gave it a topic, maybe an illustration style, and I gave it some information about my kids, and it just made me a 1-of-1 copy. That's unique for my kids to teach them marketing at the skill level where they're currently at. In the future, AI will be able to do that. It'll be able to write it. It'll be able to illustrate it. And then Amazon already does print on demand. So like I should technically be able to create whole series for my kids to teach them things that's unique to their already passions and interests, and it can correlate learning topics to the things they already like Pokemon or something like that, right? Maybe not Pokemon, it's like licensed trademark, but it can talk to things that they already like and teach them. That's unique curriculum that's just for them, not useful for anybody else because it's based on their stuff. That's where AI can start to add unique and original value. I want to find more things like that and then figure out how to deliver it myself, hopefully by the end of the year, but maybe I don't get there. But that's kind of like the pathway that I'm going to master AI.
I will be paying very close attention, my friend. Very, very close attention. I'm sure a lot of people will too. But again, thank you so much for being on. Where can everybody find you? Take 30 seconds. Take a minute even, my friend. Where can everybody find you? Plug what you want to plug.
I mean, danchez.com has links to everything. Jump on my newsletter from danchez.com. If you want to see what I'm doing with AI, go to aimicroskills.com. And I spend the most time on LinkedIn. So it's linkedin.com/in/digital marketing Dan is my handle for that. I wish you could change the handle, but it's already linked to so many different places that I can't change it now. Like 10 years from now, I'll still be dropping that URL and people will be like, what's like, isn't all marketing digital marketing? And I'll be like, yeah. It was a phase.
Yeah, that's great, my friend. That's awesome. But thank you again so much for being here. I learned a lot. Everybody listening to this learned a lot. And we also learned a lot on how to learn a lot. So we appreciate you.